Okay, so I'm just going to start again, but I'm going to run through a couple of things here to do with audio and then also show you how to get titles onto your timeline in Premiere Pro, which is something you're going to begin to need in the different projects we're working on. So those are really the two new things I'm going to cover now. And then I'm also going to show you how to synchronize two clips up as well, but that might be a little bit later. So I'm recording with my camera here and on the screen, and I'm going to show you how to synchronize those tracks up. And one of the ways that you can synchronize tracks up is either to have a clapperboard or to have an audio signal, so to clap twice or something like that, and you can use that to synchronize two video tracks, which is something you'll want to do when you're starting to shoot from lots of different angles in a multi-camera kind of edit. But first things first, with the audio timeline, it's slightly different in CC, but when you're working in CS6, on the audio track, if you want to expand it out, you'll see a little arrow to the left of the audio track, which allows you to expand out the audio before you can then open it up like this. And it's really useful to be able to kind of expand out the audio track and then zoom in, because then you can really see where the voice is starting and stopping. So if you're cutting to someone presenting something, then being able to see where they pause or stop talking helps you to cut out parts of the timeline more quickly. So if we have a look here, then you can see where my pauses are here. I can mark an in point. So I'm just using J, K, and L to move through the timeline, and out point, and then I can do Command, which I can't remember the shortcut now. I can do, see the control, yeah, Alt and Delete, and that will delete and close the gap. Okay, so Alt and Delete will delete and then close the gap where you're editing. So that's really useful when you've got a voice track. And with these kinds of presentations, you can get away with a little bit of jump in the footage, because you're moving from one similar shot to another. And if you have a look at a lot of YouTube channels, you'll see those jump cuts. Even as someone's talking to camera, they'll be kind of cutting quite rapidly between different shots that they've taken. Okay, and that's one of the reasons a lot of YouTubers will use the 4K cameras as well, is because then they can edit to 1920 by 1080, but when they're shooting their face with a 4K camera, they can zoom in and zoom out, so you avoid that kind of more obvious jump cut, like a little bit of a weird cut in the footage. Okay, so that's how to open up the audio and make it bigger so you can see the audio track and zoom in. I just look for that little arrow in CS6. And then to add titles into your project, we can go to the title menu here and then new title. So basically we've got a default still title, a roll, or a crawl. So if we go for a still, then basically it's creating a title. The default name will be title 1, 2, 3, etc. At the resolution that we're working in. So we can just click OK. And then we'll get the title editor up, which basically allows us to start to add type into here. So if we grab the type tool, we can drag it out here and type in our title, which is white on another color, so it's going to be hard to see. But I just reselected that, and now I can increase the size of my type. And I've got all the options that I need here for things like color control. So on the right hand side here in the titles window, you can see, let's just grab the selection tool from the top left here, so we can move it down. You can see the title will work nicely over those darker areas of the image if it's white text, but we can select that and then also change it to a different color as well. So we can pick any color that we want, either by picking it from the color picker and the hue bar here, where we can scroll through the different hues and then click OK, and it will apply that. That one's not going to work. So we do need that contrast between the foreground and the background as we're adding in things like titles. Just make sure that it does pop out when you're working on that. In the titles here as well, we can also add things like opacity, so we can let the text kind of merge with the layer behind. We can also add a shadow behind the text too, which is going to help it pop out, particularly if you're putting whiter text or lighter text over an area of the image where there's similar colors. So that drop shadow will allow you to kind of help it pop out. Okay, so once we close that, okay, then we can drag it from our clips in the project source over here, and it will add the title to our timeline here. Okay, so that's how to add a basic title in Premiere Pro. And once we've added it to the timeline, we can double click on it there, and it will bring us back into the title editor, so we can modify it there as well. So we've got lots and lots of different kind of type controls that we'll run through later on, but we've also got some shape controls that we can add in here. So if you're familiar a little bit with Photoshop or other image editing tools, then you'll recognize some of these, and we can draw on different shapes into our kind of titles too, so we can get different graphic designs into there. Okay, and we can control the color for all of these different elements individually as well and select them. It does mean that these work like layers, so basically the yellow box that I put here will layer over the top of the type. So if we rescale that, okay, we're going to want to arrange that and send it to the back. So basically, if we right click on a shape or a piece of text, we can go to arrange and either send backwards or send to back, and it will drop behind the text that we've added. So we can we've got a lot of control within the titles in terms of what we can do. Okay, that looks truly awful, but you can see how you can add the graphics in there. We can edit the titles the same way we edit video, so we can shorten it as well, and we can also animate it as well. So I think we briefly looked at a little bit of scale work yesterday, but if we have a title selected, okay, I'm going to close the title window there, we can change the scale of that title in here, and we can also animate things here. So if I come to the beginning of my title here and go to position up here in the inspector, the effect controls on the top left, I can turn on my little stopwatch for position. Okay, I'll come ahead in time, add a keyframe. So now that I've turned on the stopwatch, I can add keyframes at different points in time, and then I can use these arrows here to navigate between different keyframes. So if I go back one, then I can use the scroll bar, the numbers here, just drag on them or type in a number to pull it off the screen, and then it will animate between those two different keyframes. Okay, so you can do any, you can animate any element in Premiere Pro where you see these stopwatches. So for scale, rotation, opacity, we can animate and modify all those elements and keyframe them as well, which means we can animate them as they go through. Okay. All right.